OK, so if we pulled out of the ECHR, do you think that's really a concern for human rights in Britain, genuinely?
I think it is. It sends such a terrible message out there that we don't really respect human rights. I mean, this is something that, if you look into the history of how we ended up in this position with the ECHR, we were one of the first nations to actually ratify the treaty before it became actual law in 1953. So 1951, sorry. So I think it would just send such a terrible message if you were to leave. And also, let's just, you've mentioned Russia just now not being a member of the convention, but we had to expel Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. And if we then decide, actually, we don't want to be part of this body, see you later, bye, it just sends such a terrible message. The optics are terrible. And I do think that we should definitely...
Is it like, with respect, is it in reality that bad, or would people just say it is and clutch some pearls and make a thing out of it? The reason why we'd be leaving it, presumably, would be so that we can try and fly people off to Rwanda. I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world, is it?
Well, if you actually think about it, we've got the Human Rights Act in place as well, which actually safeguards a lot of the sort of legal aspects of the ECHR rulings. But the problem is, like you've just mentioned, the Rwandan issue, we'd have to then water down the Human Rights Act as well in order to allow these deportations to take place. And that's the danger here. So where do we stop? At what point do we say, OK, that's enough now, we're not going to water down, or we're not going to remove any more of these human rights that we've always had in place for 60 years, nearly 70 years now. So where does it stop? And also, I remember distinctly, I'm in my 40s now, but when we were getting ready to invade Afghanistan, when we were getting ready with the Iraq War, one of the biggest sort of flags that everybody were waving at the time was, oh, well, we're going in to protect human rights abuses, to fight against human rights abuses, we're going to go in to protect the rights of women, and so on. Where would how on earth can we then argue that Canada, we are champions of human rights if we...
I mean, yeah, but I just do not realistically think that being a member of the ECHR is the only reason why we would be able to go and tell the world that we are pro-human rights. I mean, America aren't members of it, Canada isn't, New Zealand isn't, Japan isn't. I mean, do they lose all ability to go and tell the world about human rights?
I think that the danger is when you have been part of an organisation for so long, and and it has helped massively. Being a member has helped people like elderly people. There was a case where a couple had been separated, and they used the ECHR to fight for the human rights, and they were reunited. There have been other issues as well in terms of protecting press freedoms as well. Journalists who've been targeted unfairly by the police, they were able to sue and actually basically find the courts found in their favour. So yeah, I think the optics are not good, and that's why, I mean, as I said to your producer earlier on, if we had a robust system in place, if we actually had something that was equivalent in place in the UK, and then we thought, right, okay, we're leaving, but we've got this in place to safeguard our human rights and so on, then I would actually be, okay, well, at least there is something that's equivalent in place. But I don't think we do. I think that when the Human Rights Act, the equivalent have been presented, I don't think they go far enough. So I don't think it's a good idea to leave at this stage.
If you wanted to do so if you wanted to do something in your own home, right? Like naturally, you as a well-meaning, good person with no evil intent whatsoever, decided that you wanted to do something. Maybe it was to do with, I don't know, the way that you went about raising your own child or something, right? Would you voluntarily say, well, I want somebody from Luxembourg or Liechtenstein or Monaco or Moldova to have the final say as to whether or not I could do what I wanted to do in my own home? I imagine you would say no to that, wouldn't you?
Well, it depends on what I mean, my son's nearly 20 now. I imagine everybody wanting to raise their children would want their children to be safe, looked after, emotional, mental health catered for.